Hello everyone, thanks for joining. We're just going to start now. Nida, would you like to start?
Hi, Safia. Thank you. Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar on Pathways to Success, Employee Training and Education, organized by Serb and Pakistan Business Council. My name is Nida Qureshi, and I look after corporate communications and employee engagement at Engro Polymer and Chemicals. First of all, thank you for joining us from different locations, especially in this raining situation when connectivity is always a challenge. So we truly appreciate you making out time to be part of this important dialogue. And a big thank you to Safia and the team for putting this together. It was long due. And also to Javed Saab, the CEO of Pakistan Business Council, for taking out time to join us. And CEO Engro Polymers, Abdul Qayyum Sheikh, along with Beenish, Head of HR and Corp Comms, and Arzu, who is an independent HR consultant, for being part of this conversation. I won't go in much detail about what the SDG leadership program itself is. I leave that to Safia, who can share more context for those in the audience who may not be familiar. But what I will touch on is SDG Goal 4, Quality Education, which Engro Polymer and Chemicals is closely working in collaboration with Pakistan Business Council as a knowledge sharing partner. And today's webinar is actually being hosted under that very commitment. Basically, it's all about how learning is rapidly changing in the world, and even for employees, for communities, for businesses. Globally, everyone's seeing this clear shift that employees are placing more values and on skills and adaptability rather than just formal qualifications. If you take examples from countries like China, they're giving more importance to vocational and pace up with the economic transformation. So just to brief it up, it's the message is that, education is no longer something that you complete once in your lifetime. It's a continuous process. And the more you invest in it, the more future ready you become. And that's exactly why this webinar matters. It's a chance to share that experience with each other and to learn and strengthen the collective impact we can make, not just within the companies, but across the society. And with that, I would like to invite Javed Saab, CEO Pakistan Business Council, to give his welcome note and set the stage for our discussion. Over to you, Javed Saab.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, I'll start again.
Okay.
Thank you, Nida. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today to speak on an issue that is just not important for companies, but truly a national strategic priority for Pakistan, the upskilling and continuous development of our workforce. Just a little bit about Pakistan Business Council. PBC is a business policy advocacy platform established in 2005 and now supported by 93 of the largest private sector businesses and conglomerates, including multinationals. Its main objectives are to create a business environment for sustainable growth of jobs, exports, and self-sufficiency. It also works to promote formalization of the economy. Additionally, through its Center of Excellence in Responsible Business, the PBC aims to understand and demonstrate how responsible business can progress sustainable value creation. SERB engages with knowledge partners to build both our expertise and the capacity of the private sector. In this regard, since 2017, the PBC is honored to have been supported by the IFC as a knowledge partner in advancing women's employment in the private sector. Our country's competitiveness, both in driving domestic growth and in sustaining our export markets, depends directly on the skills of our people. In a world where technology, innovation, and global standards are advancing at an unprecedented pace, the need to invest in our workforce has never been greater. Investing in people is not an option. It is essential for sustainable economic growth. When we create opportunities for training and development, we are not only strengthening our businesses, we are also securing Pakistan's future. This commitment directly aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4, quality education, which calls for inclusive and equitable education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. By embedding training and development into our workplaces, We are extending education beyond classrooms and ensuring that learning continues throughout a person's career. Companies that foster a culture of continuous learning are proven to be more productive, more innovative, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Such organizations adapt faster, create new value, and contribute far more meaningfully to the economy. Upskilling also carries a powerful social impact. It opens doors for women, youth, and marginalized groups to participate fully in the workforce, unleashing talent that often goes untapped. This inclusivity is critical if we want to achieve broad based and sustainable progress. At the center of excellence in responsible business, we believe strongly in the power of dialogue and peer learning. That is why we support conversations like today's, where companies can come together to share best practices and inspire each other to do more. I would also like to take this moment to appreciate Engro Polymer's leadership in employee training and skills development. Your commitment sets a benchmark for others, and today's session is a testament to that vision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Javed Saab, for laying out the big picture on this topic so clearly. And with that, it is my pleasure to now invite CEO Engro Polymer and Chemicals, Abdul Qayyum Sheikh, to share his perspective on today's dialogue. Over to you, AQS.
So first of all, thank you and very good morning. Assalamu alaikum everybody and Javed Saab and the PPC team, all the participants, our Engro colleagues. Thank you very much. It's just real pleasure for me to sort of come and speak on this important topic in this webinar. You see, Mira, I have a very different perspective on training and development because it's the people who make the difference in the overall organizational perspectives and organizational growth. Whatever you say, wherever we operate, it's the people who make the difference. And the challenge behind that is we need to make sure that we continue to upskill them. Otherwise, from the background that we are in, when we enter into any organization, if we don't invest in them, don't upskill them with whatever changes are happening across us, we will be left behind. And there is no reason that that's something that we should not be doing at all. And there's a very common saying and perspective that you see companies like us are having a lot of attrition also. Sometimes people say it's very healthy to have a normal attrition, but so much of a debate and discussion always happens. We do a lot of training, we invest a lot more in people, and in bigger organization and bigger corporates as a responsible organization, people always ask, is it fair to invest too much in people and in terms of doing all these investment? But question always come, if you train and invest in people, they leave you for a better cause, it's always good. But what if you don't train them and they still remain with you? So then what will happen with the organization? It's very important that we continue to upskill our people and grow them. It is good for them, good for country, good for companies and everywhere. So that is where we believe that it's only possible when we collectively look at this goal. And I'm very thankful to PBC for creating that atmosphere and making sure that we do whatever we are supposed to, be it in terms of this STG or any other initiative. So real thanks to Javed Sab, you for your leadership, Nazish and Safia for putting up all together, and that it's not easy. So real acknowledgement, appreciation for all the PBC teams, and it gives companies across Pakistan to come and learn from each other. So that's what the actual essence and probably the outcome of this. When it comes to EPCL, honestly, as I said earlier, it starts people, and people are at the heart of the sustainable growth. Without people, nothing can happen, nothing can move if you don't have the right people with right sort of skills at the right place. So that's the challenge that we always continue to move forward. And our business performance, our ability to innovate, everything is linked around people. And in today's world, it's even more important to invest in that particular trade. So with that, I think at EPCL we try to reflect this in how we train people inside the company. We invest across levels and leadership development from a frontline perspective to go deeper into a subject matter experts and whatever you call key challenge that obviously being EPCL a very manufacturing centric organization, our focus is on vocational training, which is more. And by saying that, we also try to encourage to bring women workforce into the overall arena. So very small projects like upskilling, like we have a very proud project that we continue to do is upskilling women in terms of the forklifter operations. Similarly, khudi break ke baad. So initiatives like those are making sure that we bring back those female workers, those have left behind because of any reason, any personal commitment, family commitment, or because of the skills industry require, and they don't have those skills. So be it into our their businesses, skilling them to become a large dump truck drivers or similar. Those are perceived to be only male dominated jobs. So that is where Engro in general is trying and contributing towards the betterment of the companies, country, and the society. So, taking this opportunity, I also still want to emphasize the importance of partnership. And with the PBC, we have had the privilege to collaborate on this SDG 8 earlier that we are doing on the labor laws and serve as the SDG leader on creating livelihood summit on SDG 4 also. So that actually brings in this overall ecosystem closer to each other, learn from everybody, and then move on with whatever objectives we have. So that's it, and I think that's what makes today so meaningful. It's not about showcasing what one company has done, but it's more about learning from each other and collaborating so that we can always and every time learn from each other. We should be coming forward and helping each other for whatever good or bad experience we have learned so that other can avoid and learn from. So once again, with that, I'll not take much time because there's lot to be talked about by the panelists and others. But thank you everybody whosoever has taken time and participated, and a special shout out for the PBC team for having us here and giving us this opportunity. So I look forward for a very meaningful conversation ahead and the ideas. So thank you very much and wish you all the best for the remainder of the webinar.
Qayyum Saab, this is Javed. You're really doing a tremendous job. So, heartiest congratulations from us. Your passion is clear, and we wish there were more people like you and your company. So, really, really well done.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate. But this is just a small effort, and a lot has to be done with PBC also because we are also learning this overall process. So your team, especially Naziz, Safia, I'm sure Binish and Nida can talk about more. But on behalf of everybody over here in organization, I also thank all the teams. Those are helping us in terms of because this we are trying to do a very small part, but PBC has a bigger influence, and we always need to learn from each other. That's the perspective. So thank you, sir. Looking forward.
Thank you so much, AQS, and for sharing those insights. And I think the importance of framing the importance of business and social responsibility in training with projects like Umideno and Thar projects. So thank you for that. And before I hand it over to Safia for the panel discussion officially, can I request everyone for a quick e-group picture? And then Safia, you can take over. Safia, are you going to take the picture or should I?
I just did actually, but if you want to go ahead and take it.
Okay, done.
All right. So thank you, Nida. Thank you, Javed Saab and Abdul Qayyum Sheikh, for sharing some really insightful remarks on training and development. I particularly like how we started from how this is a need for Pakistan and then moved towards what Engro Polymer has done. I'm Safia Hussain. I look at the SDG Leadership Program at SERB. And while we've been doing this program for many years now, what we've noticed is that bringing local examples is the best way to convince other companies of a business case and also a fairness case on training and development and all the other goals as well. And working with Engro Polymer has definitely helped us achieve that. So thank you to the team at Engro Polymer for always being like our active partners, showing up when we need them the most, and also managing things, especially like this webinar. I know we've had to cancel it once because of the rains, but thank you so much for making sure that this happens. So before I move on, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the SDG Leadership Program. So the program basically identifies best practices, and we work through various models. So we do trainings, we do webinars, we do case studies as part of the program, and we've started doing summits. And as Abdul Qayyum mentioned, we've done summits with Engro Polymer in the past. The summits are focused on various areas where we club the SDGs together because our aim is to spread the message, and our aim is to do the outreach work and connect and form partnerships. So that's why we've been very active with doing the SDG leadership program with various companies. When companies sign up, we ask them for information. We make a fact sheet, so their information is out there for everybody else to see as well. So that's how we've been running the program. And now I'd like to ask Beenish to please introduce herself, and then Arzu, if you can do that too.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Really, it's a privilege and an honor to be here to represent Engro Polymer. I'm Beenish Kajani, and I head HR and Corp Comms for the organization. Been with the group for the last, I want to say now, almost 3 years, and I will be speaking on SDG4 today. Arzu, over to you.
Thank you. Well, I'm Arzu Mahmood. Good morning and hello to everyone. I'm a certified trainer, coach, human resource management, and DEI professional. I've spent nearly 3 decades in HR, management, and leadership, primarily in the banking sector, and more recently as a consultant and trainer across industries. It's a pleasure to be here with Engro Polymer and Chemicals and Pakistan Banking Council to speak on a subject that's close to my heart as well, training and upskilling. So thank you.
Thank you, Arzu. Thank you, Beenish. So I'll ask my first question to you, Beenish. Like Abdul Qayyum mentioned, you've been investing in employee education, training, and development, and how it's become a priority for the company. I want to ask, what was the vision that made it a priority for the company, and how do you decide which skills you need to train on? How does that come about? Do you consult stakeholders? What does the process look like?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I'll start off with why train people. And I think, given that, of course, I'm sure everybody on this call is familiar, Engro is, by virtue of its nature of work, is a manufacturing concern. So there is constant investment in our assets, our physical assets. However, it is also very important to get the right people who are rightfully skilled to run those assets reliably and safely. And that is where training comes into play. There are two types of trainings that we focus on. There is functional training, and there is training on your soft skills or your leadership skills. Both of them, we feel that while the assets lead to business impact, however, the training of people is what really leads to real growth. At EPCL, if I was to talk about training, and how we determine where to train and how to train, there are multiple ways of us getting feedback from our employees and our stakeholders. We don't want to make training something that is a forced intervention from the organization. The best way to understand what people want to learn is by reaching out to them and asking them. So an employee engagement survey that we run every year is one of the parameters that helps us understand what do people want to know more about, what is it that they are interested in, what are the kind of future trends that they want to learn about. And that's the first point that's the first point that we get in terms of what should we train people on. The second thing then, of course, is based on the yearly appraisals that we do, where there is a development conversation between the line manager and the employees. And collectively, we look at those common themes in the organization where we feel people need to be perhaps upskilled as well. And that becomes our second point. The third is that we also conduct focus groups specifically on capability development. And you would be surprised at the kind of asks that we get in that, and gone are those days where people say, can you please train us on how to make better presentations, or can you please train us on how to, be better at selling skills. Now people want to learn very different things. There is a lot of AI that's involved. There's a lot of artistic abilities. People want to learn how to, even people in manufacturing want to learn how to use Canva, for instance. People in commercial want to learn more about people management. People in the HR division want to learn more about how the chemical reaction works at the plant. And that's the great part about being in an organization like this, which gives you that canvas to be able to learn what you feel like learning. And of course, when you start from there and you ask people what they want to learn and you deliver on that, automatically there is more buy-in and investment from people as well.
Thanks, Vinesh, for going over this in quite a lot of detail. And I appreciate that you mentioned some skills like Canva, like chemicals. It's really interesting that there's a good mix. You can see the artistic part, but you can also see sort of the chemistry bits, which is really interesting to hear how companies and how employees themselves have a say in choosing what they want to learn. Arzu, this brings me to my question for you. You've been in the corporate sector for a while. You've had the opportunity to design trainings. How have you seen trainings evolve over the years? And perhaps, like Vinesh mentioned, what are the skills that employees now should be focusing on? How has it evolved over the years for Pakistan?
Oh, it has evolved tremendously. The mindset has shifted tremendously. And I'm talking about the mindset of the organizations, not the employees only. So it has shifted from tick box to more intentional approach. That's how the companies have started to think now. Earlier, it was often seen as a compliance requirement, something organization did to just tick the box that we've done these mandatory trainings and technical workshop was the focus. But now the leadership has become more aware in organizations. I've been in the industry for almost 29 years, so it's a fairly big canvas to look at in terms of time, and I've seen companies evolve in terms of investing in only technical know-how to now thinking about training their people in terms of leadership, diversity, things that were pretty much rare in the industries. They never talked about diversity and inclusion. These were the fluff or flowery language and terms that we used to use at that time being HR, but things have changed. So now from those tick box compliance-based technical trainings, compliance-based trainings or technical trainings, the shift has become more positively towards leadership, diversity and inclusion, soft skills, the way Binish also mentioned, and the need, they've realized the need that actually is going to build sustainable systems and sustainable and resilient organizations. Now they've realized that. And I feel the pandemic has accelerated this shift. The digital platforms that have taken place, blended formats, micro learning that have become more common now, which were not there before. So I think what I've seen is years ago, there was no model used for training. I used to teach at IBP as well, and we started it from there, that they started using models. Otherwise, there were hundreds of slides of PowerPoint presentations, and people would just go as trainers and they'll train them. I used to train on banking law and practice. So I didn't have much to talk about but the laws and concentrate on that. But the other things, soft skills, were not given that much importance. So hundreds and hundreds of slides. But since the models have been in the system now, they've become a part of learning system, it has become more easy. And the companies are now focusing on their people getting soft skills as well. First, soft skills were earlier, for soft skills were not given that importance. But now soft skills have become part of the emotional intelligence, the empathy, the compassion part of the leader that is required to be there to be able to manage people, because not all the time they're going to manage uh, the machines, the products. More than half of the time, 80% of the time, they have to manage teams. So how do they do that? That approach has taken place in the minds of the companies. That is a big shift that I've seen. So yeah, big change.
All right. I think the changes that you've seen, and like you mentioned, perhaps it was COVID that sort of accelerated it. I think we've also seen it in day to day in schools and also in personal life. Initially, emotional intelligence, all these topics were not really focused on. I think the max that we focused on was public speaking. But I think slowly now we've started changing that focus, and corporates have also picked up on it. So Binish, my next question for you would be, EPCL has designed various kinds of programs, and how do you measure the success rate of each of these programs? Because they must be so different in nature. So what are the metrics? What does that look like?
So I think what you're alluding to is how do we really get, or how do we really measure the ROI on training or understand the efficacy of the training programs we have in place? And honestly, if I was to tell you, maybe there is no mathematical formula that we use at the moment. And I think that's an industry conversation that we have very often with other partners as well, other organizations as well. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, most organizations, or all organizations rather, are there to be able to drive business results. So when it comes to learning and when it comes to the investment that you make, there is always that question around, are people benefiting and are we seeing an impact or not? At the moment, I think the way we kind of go about this is in 4 different steps. Number one, after every training, there is immediate feedback from people that we do take. This is obviously on their overall experience, but more so around the quality of learning that they took away from that day. Was it something that they were able to understand? Was it relevant? Was it something that they could go back and use in some shape and form in the work that they do? And it doesn't have to be something functional. It really could just be even how to have an effective feedback conversation. It could be just about how to inspire people. And if it is functional, it could really just be about how to negotiate better margins with a customer. So these are the kind of questions that we force people to answer for us to understand, was the training really something that made an impact? The second thing is, of course, the engagement scores. And like I mentioned in my first answer as well, we do run a yearly survey, and there is a section on that that talks about how do people feel about the learning opportunities we provide at Engro. And that is a question that also helps us understand if we are able to drive the level of learning and capability development that we intend to. And it helps us pivot our strategy accordingly. The third is, of course, performance outcomes. Because when you do multiple interventions, in some shape and form, they kind of come back into the daily work that you do. And in some cases, you will see an immediate change. And in some cases, it's a bit of a journey. Especially like Arzu said, in soft skills or in leadership development areas, you will see a change with time, but nonetheless you do see people grow, people mature, people really transform into more effective people managers by virtue of these trainings. And then the last one, of course, is progression and retention. So growth of people and people staying back because the organization has more to offer than just the paycheck that you get at the end of the month. If you're able to really drive that culture of developing people and investing in them, there is a lot of value that the right kind of talent places on that. So that's pretty much how we would look at our return on investment in terms of training.
That's great, Venus. And I think everything that I'm getting from your answers is a lot of it is employee focused in the sense that they are the ones who take that survey, they give you feedback, but they're also the ones that are asking for those trainings. So it's a
Yeah.
very good cycle that you've sort of established, and a way to actually measure how successful these things are, but also giving that the opportunity to share their thoughts. Because I remember even in school, for example, in classrooms, sometimes the conversations are so repetitive, sometimes the slides are so long, like Arzu mentioned, that you lose focus, right? And I think it's really important to measure how these things work, how successful they are. Arzu, that brings me to my next question for you. What are some best practices you've observed in uh, companies that excel at employee training, and overall some best practices that you might have seen?
Right. Well, in the companies that excel at training, I've observed three major things, the broad ones. The first thing is that these companies are the ones that realize that if invested in the right way, human is the only asset that appreciates over time. So investing in humans, enhancing their skills is equally lucrative for the business as it is in research and development of product and machinery. Or as Beanish mentioned, procurement of assets, installing them and making the people skillful how to handle those machinery, it's also equally important to invest in those people feel important enough, to become your future leaders, not only, focused on the machine operation. There always will be certain people who will be doing all those things because those are important as well, unless we get into, more scientific things and robotics, etc., going forward, not right now. But, human nonetheless remains the only asset that appreciates with time. Baki sare assets, if you just have a look, they depreciate with time. They don't appreciate, but human skills and human is also is something that always increases and appreciates. So that's the first thing I've seen in companies, along with the fact that these initiatives are always, driven from the top. All these companies always take these initiatives and it's always driven from the top. HR aligns all the business goals directly to the strategy of learning strategy of people. It is never training for the sake of training. The way Beanish very rightly and in detail mentioned how they make the effort not only to have those training take place, but also have the feedback process in place so that they maximize to the closest bit the ROI that they could have from those investments. So, HR does that. So, for example, if there's a mystery shopping result or a customer service satisfaction survey result or a market survey that shows that business has to achieve a higher customer satisfaction level or reduce production errors or ensure readiness for business expansion for a new division to be opened or a product innovation, the learning program is designed actually around those outcomes. So when the focus is so clear, you cannot go wrong. And these companies excel because they have focus in these areas very specifically, and they measure the impact. The way Beanish very rightly mentioned, it's not about counting heads or man hours or how many people are in the training room. It's about looking at the results. The matrices that develop to gauge efficacy, like higher customer satisfaction, enhanced problem resolution, reduced complaints, fewer errors, stronger engagement, better retention. All of these are matrices. When you quantify things, when you measure things, they improve. So if these companies have focus, that's why they excel in these trainings. Secondly, I feel these companies have a culture of learning. They don't use it as a one-off thing. For example, we're discussing Engro. Let's talk about Engro. Engro believes in embedding things in their daily life of the people, so that it becomes a part of their DNA. It becomes a part of their culture. So employees don't learn just from trainers; they learn from the behavior of their managers also. So when the leaders demonstrate learning, employees mirror that curiosity. That's very important. And thirdly, these companies like Engro and Unilever and HBL, these companies collaborate with partners like Pakistan Banking Council. There are other partners like independent partners, now PDP, Connect Here, Karachi Down Syndrome, Circle Women, TCF, and many more, and also partner with academia. These are the ideas that we use always as consultants, to go full throttle in terms of creating your network, a bigger network. So these companies do that. So these are the three things that I've seen the companies who are excellent at training doing. I hope that helps.
That really helps a lot. I really particularly like the part where you mentioned that employees are the only asset that sort of appreciates over time. That's quite an interesting approach to looking at employee training. And I think you're right in saying that because when you empower your employees through trainings and you give them you give them enough, understanding and motivation, then they also take ownership of the work that they do. And I think that plays a huge role in success, and not just for the company, but also individually and for the department, and obviously then in turns the company as well. Arzu, I think I just have a follow-up question. You mentioned that conversations about training and development for successful modules, etc., are driven from the top. While that is true, I just want to ask, what's the role of HR in promoting those conversations, in making sure employees are interested, and which other departments should be working with them, or which we usually don't see, and what should that look like?
And HR has a big role to play in that. Trust me, HR is somebody, it's a function that actually creates the culture. It is the function that engages with people. It is the culture that feeds all the stakeholders. All the businesses have to come to HR or collaborate with HR for resources, whether they need the resources for their training, for their performance management, for their development, even for their performance improvement. So HR is one function that is there for everybody. Can you just repeat the question, the second part of it, so that I can relate to it and I can answer that?
Yes. So I was just saying, which company, which HR, what's the role of HR in ensuring that employees stay motivated, and which departments need to work with HR, and something that we traditionally don't see, or perhaps employees that, perhaps departments that do work very closely. If you could just tell us about that.
Well, every department has to work with HR, and trust me, HR has to work with every department. It's not that the departments have to only. It's not HR's job, and people management, it's not just HR's job. It's the line manager, the business heads. We've always partnered with businesses. Without businesses' partnerships and their involvement in things, nothing is possible. If HR makes policies, if HR makes trainings, enables trainings, and participants aren't there, they're busy doing work because that work is very important. And that is true, the work is very important. But if they don't come for training, what's the fun in even having all those efforts? HR's effort is futile. Now, let me, I'll take a little bit of your time, just a small little fable. If we've read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, there's a story of a person who sees a person cutting wood, and he's just sawing the wood, and he's so busy doing it that it's taking a lot of time, but it's not happening. So the person who is a passerby says, why don't you sharpen your saw? That'll help you do it efficiently. And he says, no, I'm too busy. I have to cut the wood right now. I don't have time to sharpen the saw. So, when you don't have time to sharpen the saw, you will not be able to cut the wood as much as you want to and as fine as you want to. So the time, energy, and all the investment that goes futile. HR is somebody, in terms of training only, focusing right now only on training, is the function that gives you the opportunity to sharpen the saw. So businesses have to realize that, and they do. That's why the enterprise grows. That's why these institutions like Engro, like Unilever, Nestle, and a lot of others in Pakistan also, banks like HBL, banks like Bank Al-Fula, Mizan, they have put in a lot of effort in terms of their people, investing in their people. So the answer is HR does the mentoring, coaching, ensures that there's on-the-job exposure for people, there's e-learning for people, and there are feedback systems, live feedback systems available, so that if people are unhappy or they're dissatisfied about something, they're able to get back to you. You're accessible. They're able to tell you. They're able to tell their line managers. And there's a beautiful harmony of line business heads and HR that make this environment possible for them. And then they nurture the culture that goes for the success of the organization. That's how it is done, actually.
Thank you, Arzu. I think that was a very good example that you shared, and I think it sums up exactly why companies need to be looking at training and development. I think, Vinesh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to, and then I lowered my hand because Arzu pretty much covered the point, but spot on. I think learning honestly is something that has to be driven by leadership. So it's not an HR responsibility. HR can be a catalyst or can be the perhaps the team that provides the strategy, as Arzu rightly mentioned, but it is definitely a responsibility of the team, the leadership team itself. And the reason I say that is because while we can provide the right tools and the right opportunities, the mindset has to, or the culture rather, has to be driven from the top. If you do not see your leader investing in his or her own development, you will often see the team also not having enough believability in investing in themselves. So that's number one. Number two, even when it comes to initiatives that have an impact beyond your organization, it is very important to have buy-in from leadership. So for instance, Kayum very lightly touched upon the Umeed and Awe program, which is our forklift program, where we train women from different walks of life who come in and actually get trained on how to use a forklift. And then they are given opportunities in warehouses, whether it is at Engro, whether it is elsewhere. But this is a place where we need manufacturing to partner with us. We have our senior leaders in commercial go to different schools, whether it is our TCF school that we fund, or whether it is a school, whether it is a business school like LUMS, IBA, etc. But we need people to be invested to make time to be able to attend those talks. So it is a shared responsibility that is driven from the entire team, and it just can't be a KPI that HR has to drive.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you covered that, because my next question for you was to talk a little bit about success stories that you've particularly seen in the programs that you've developed or for your community. So if you could just share a few, but maybe regarding your mentor program.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about community and I'll talk a little bit about the organization as well. I think I kind of talked about Umeed and Awe, which is, I think, one of the flagship programs that we have. Other than that, we also have a very robust and effective traineeship program whereby we take in people with an engineering diploma or a technical diploma who come in as trade apprentices. And I think I for one am very proud of the fact that we actually build and give people careers from ground up. It's very heartening to see both men and women join in, but especially women, because it's not easy to work in a field or in an organization that is very heavily male dominated. And when you have these young women come in from different parts of Sindh, different parts of Punjab, because they are looking to actually make a livelihood for themselves and to be independent, that's a great platform where you go through a training program of 2 years and then you secure a permanent position at an organization like Engro Polymer. So that's another way that we kind of work around the community. And then when it comes to CSR initiatives, we have a whole program in place whereby we work with, we have a school, we partner with the Citizens Foundation, where we also have a big impact on the Gagar Phatak community, which is close by to our plant. And the intent is to try and upskill people in that space who can then come in eventually and take on roles in an organization like ours. Because we also work in a product like PVC, and we are the only producers of PVC in the country. We also upskill carpenters, plumbers to understand the product and how to use it effectively when working or when working in their own fields. Other than that, when it comes to internal interventions, I think the one thing that recently we feel has really taken up, because like we said, people are very busy. It's very hard to take out those 8 hours or that one day away from your work and say, I will invest today in training. Honestly, even attention spans are not the same anymore. So the one thing that we really thought would help was bite-sized learning interventions. And very recently, we wanted to, kind of drive that along with making learning more fun. And we've launched an internal program called Learning Over Latte. The idea is to get people together. Anybody who signs up, it's a voluntary sign up, so nobody's forced to attend a training. But you can sign up, come in for an hour, learn something new, enjoy a cup of coffee, network, and go back. So we're trying to come up with these small, fun ways of keeping people more engaged and in investing in themselves and their development.
That's really interesting. I like the lattes, learning over lattes idea. I think it's a great way to bring in people and not sort of force them to do trainings, but also let them decide if they have the time. And you're right, with attention spans over time, we've seen that they have massively decreased, and it's really important to hook people up, make sure that they're still there, still listening, and retaining all of that information. I was just reading an interesting article about how now that we've started using ChatGPT and AI more, our brain's retention capacity has gone down, and it basically doesn't remember all of those things after a while, because all like brain functions aren't being used the same way as they were when we were writing things down or reading them out. or doing our own research. So definitely, I think training will continue to evolve, considering the world that we live in is evolving so quickly. Arzu, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to, because when Beenish was sharing the details, I really loved it, and I felt it's so important. I've done it at two of the banks that I worked for, the last two banks. The fact that there 50% population of this country is of women, but the fact that less than 10% come in professions and half of them leave because of marriages and caregiving responsibility, the requirements for those things, the need for returnship program is immense. So we did that. A lot of banks have done that. UBL did that. Bengal Fala did that. HBL did that. Habib Metro did that. So this need has actually given a rise to a lot of thinking, a lot of thought process, which goes into it. There's a whole what do you call it, a whole dynamic world around it. You cannot just have those people return to work just like that. It's not just bringing them, offering them jobs, training them, or giving them daycare facilities, and they'll be up and running. No, they won't. There's a whole environment that is required, a safe environment. For that, you need to make the whole company more sensitized towards a lot of other things: safety, health, sexual harassment, a lot of other things. So it's a whole world that works around these things. The way very beautifully Engro Polymer is doing it, I really, really appreciate it sincerely. And I would actually be very happy to see them do this returnship program on a bigger platform across the country, and even collaborate with other companies for this, and have a joint venture kind of a program where companies like you, not banks, of course, companies like you, where you can have a joint venture, a consortium kind of a thing for such an initiative, because that's important. There are a lot of women who want to work, but they're unable to do so because there are not so customized programs for them. So if we can do something like that, if PBC can also support, I think that would be wonderful. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thanks, Arzu. I think great insights, and definitely collaboration, I think, is the way to go. Binish, I think this is probably my last or second last question for you. I just wanted to ask very quickly. So you mentioned that you design various programs for the communities as well, because your business is so vast, and like you mentioned, you have to work with plumbers, women who you train them in forklifting, different things like that. So how do you decide what skills need to be what skills are important for the community? Is that something you look at through your business model, or do you have some mobilizers in the community that you reach out to who share those insights with you? I'm just curious how that works.
That's a very good question. So when it comes to the community, I think and especially when it comes to our business specifically, obviously technical skills or people who come with some sort of degree in, let's say, chemical technical understanding or engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, that's important for us, and not just for Engro Polymer, but for Engro Fertilizer, Engro Energy. So we obviously we closely partner with organizations, with institutes, with universities, academia that provide such training. You could be a diploma holder, you could be somebody with a degree, but there is very close partnership with them on what kind of skills will be relevant in the future. Excuse me. So very recently, I want to say 6 months back, we actually had an Academia Connect where we had multiple different academic institutes come in to the Engro Polymer plant. And the idea was to get people together on a table for a dialogue to better understand what are those skills that are going to be required in the future for different complex chemical plants or at facilities, so that the academia can also be better equipped to ensure that they are actually working in those learnings in their programs. There is also a partnership with different institutes to work on incubation centers, to work on startups, to work on things like initiatives like how to reduce the usage of plastic, or perhaps work on how to make plastic biodegradable. So there are different initiatives that are taking place around that. And I think what we do is we keep into account two things. Number one, what will be relevant in the future in terms of skill set, and number two, what will be required by the environment in terms of climate change as well. And that's how we kind of then go about and partner with different institutes to make an impact.
Thanks for sharing, Vinesh. I think the fact that there's so many collaborations involved, there's actually like a proper thought given to the fact that will these skills even be relevant in the future? I think that's what makes your training program so successful. Arzu, my question for you is, Engro obviously has a big budget for these trainings, and they can, park a big sum of money for and invest in that. What about businesses that are smaller? What can they do? How should they focus on employee training, and where should they start from?
Okay, so now smaller businesses often ask me also, how do we train when we don't have budgets? So your question is very relevant. The truth is, you don't always have to have a budget to build a learning culture. It's something that you do when you have intent. I always say and emphasize upon this thing that you have to have intent. If you have intent to do something and the intent is at the core of whatever you're doing, then you can do it. There are people, I've seen it in Sialkot, there was a textile company, small company, SME. In Faisalabad, there was also one, and in Gujranwala, there was also one, in Lahore also. What they've done is their leaders, the business owners, or even their sons or their daughters, they share articles and insights in the language that they understand, and lessons weekly to their staff. They sit with them, they discuss, or they send them something, they read, and they come back and they discuss. There are case studies also. According to my experience, there is a peer learning process that's also there. For example, if one person knows a colleague, he teaches the other colleagues the same thing, and this is how the chain grows. Apart from that, digital process is there. There are low cost platforms. For example, even no cost platforms. Coursera hai, LinkedIn articles are there. There are videos and podcasts that are free, and they can be. There are companies who've made YouTube playlists specially curated for their staff. So this is all free. They can do it. So there's no need for a huge big budget to have learning. It starts with a storytelling from a supervisor or an owner or one of the managers of the staff. They can sit, they can have those stories, and then they can ask what is it that they take away out of that story. So small little things, but they can do it. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of stuff available on the internet. If there is an intent, they can do it.
Great answer. I agree. Like, there's a lot of free resources now, and I think companies can, without budgets, also start focusing on that. YouTube learning, I think, is the big easy way to connect all employees. And then storytelling, like you mentioned, I think through that there's a lot of mentorship that happens that way as well, and you can learn a lot just by. I think one of you mentioned earlier as well. You can learn from your managers, replicate the way they work. So that's also something that can also be a free of cost training method. I think we can now open the floor for some questions. And while we wait for the questions, Binesh and Arzu, both of you actually, I want both of you to share some thoughts about for companies, some lessons that they can take, and also how to make sure that the trainings are inclusive, because that is also a very important part of goal 4.
Yeah. All right. So I'll take the liberty to start off, and Arzu, please feel free to jump in. But I think flexibility in learning is extremely important. And when I say flexibility, I mean things like, for instance, learning can also be, by the way, on the job. Not every learning intervention has to be a planned intervention where you have to get people out of the office or out of their workplace for an 8-hour intervention. It can actually be something that you learn on the job. It can be learning through a cross-divisional project. It could be, and it could also be hybrid learning. So there is a lot of emphasis now that we have on learning online. Yes, it's always, I mean, there is merit in face-to-face learning, But I'll give you a small example. We have multiple certifications and different strategic partners that we get licenses from. So we use Skillsoft, we have Udemy, and the commute to our plant every day is a minimum of 1 hour for people and more. So a lot of people actually do learning courses online on their way back from the plant. It's a great way to kill time, and it's also a great way to learn something new while you're at it, right? Whether it is learning on one of those platforms or it's listening to a podcast or an ebook, but it's a great way to be able to access learning while you're on the go. Secondly, I think leveraging your internal faculty is very important. As Arzu mentioned, you don't have to hire somebody very investment intensive to teach. You can actually just get people who work in the organization to come talk about something that they're good at. You can actually get in the case of Engro, we actually leverage this a lot because I think we're also privileged to be part of a big organization. So we very often pull in managers and leaders from different subsidiaries to come talk about different topics. And that's another great way of learning, right? So I think learning actually can be looked at very differently. Gone are those times when learning was very conventional. आपका training plan बनाए आपको, you have to step out, you have to go for a training course. Learning can be done in different ways now.
I agree.
Thank you, Binesh. Go ahead, Arzu.
Yeah, I was just saying on the job training that Venus just mentioned. See, in olden times, not too old, but in past, for example, a couple of generations back, shadowing a skilled person was the only way to transfer your skills to your new generation. That's how the businesses grew. So having a subordinate or having your own offspring shadow you throughout the day to understand exactly how your work life goes throughout the day, it's a best way to do that. And not only does it make it easy for the learner and also the person who's giving the skill away, but I think it creates that harmony between them. It kills the gap, the power gap that is there, the power distance that is there. If a supervisor or the next level supervisor attaches those apprentices with him or her, then the power gap kills, and it creates more engagement. People feel more valued, people feel more seen, and they would want to stick around with a company or a team that values them more rather than becoming a tool for just another person or just another company. So, when you value, again, my point, when your intent is to invest in people, it's not only money that you can invest in them. You can invest in terms of the way Binish very rightly mentioned, the on the job exposures, give them opportunity to speak up, have their feedback, listen to them. When managers don't just have to give skill sets to them, managers can give them lend them an ear, something that they can actually depend on. If I'm having a bad day or a bad time, these things go a long way. Trust me, these seem like a very small little thing, but these go a long way. They make you dependable as a line manager, and people learn more quickly with you. Some people are kinesthetic learners, some are auditory learners. So, for example, when people are driving back home from the plants, they can even listen to the stories through auditory micro stories that you develop for them. That's how we've done at other companies as well. So this is something that will create more engagement and won't create more. It won't create boredom. They won't feel that it's a training, it's a compulsion, we have to do it, otherwise the HR is going to, or the supervisor is going to ask us, why didn't you do it? So it's something that's interesting, that makes them more attracted towards learning. So that is also a blend that you can actually add.
Yes, thank you so much, Arzu, for that. I think we've realized that training should be flexible, it should have intent, and also, we need to think of out of the box ways to make sure that employees are engaged. This brings us to the question that we've just been asked in the chat box by Syed Muzammil Hassan. The question is, usually it is difficult to build the culture of learning either by conducting training or establish self-initiation. To my question is how to specifically build it along with training needs analysis, TNA. Would any of you like to take that question?
I would love to. See, training needs analysis is a process, it's a step that facilitates you. If you have the intent, as I always say repeatedly, if you have the intent, nobody's stopping you from engaging with the people. Have focus group, the way Binish mentioned. Have focus groups during the appraisals or half yearly appraisals. You don't have to wait all year long to ask people what they need in terms of learning or what they think they need in terms of growing forward, going to another level. You engage with them, have roadshows, go one-on-one to the teams that you want to meet, sit with them, ask them things, call them on a tea, over a tea, and have discussions with them. Who stops HR? You know, we've limited ourselves, which used to be a very old style of HR. We've limited ourselves to our processes and policies. Nobody stops us. Just go sit with people, make relations. HR is all about people. Have relations, people will open up to you, they'll talk. When they talk, you understand. You do whatever you can. You cannot do something, tell them you cannot right now, but probably you will voice it to your line managers and the company management, and then probably something will be done about that. Or even not. At least have relationships that builds the culture. Culture is not built overnight. It's built over time. So when you repeatedly give them the same experience of your relationship, when they can rely on you, they can open up to you, they can confide in you, they will start trusting you. And trust is what builds culture. Consistent performance from you as HR professional will make them trust you, and this will build that environment. That environment will become culture one day. So that's how we've done it, and it's been successful so far. We've had failures, yes. We've had challenges, yes. But by far, I've seen this work.
Thank you,
Binish, would
Arzu,
you
for
like to add?
answering that.
Yeah.
No, I think Arzu, you covered this in great detail, and you're spot on. I think people need believability. So there has to be proof of concept for people to have buy-in, because nobody has the time to invest into something that is not going to yield any results. And hence I said that, once people start to feel like they are benefiting and they are able to add value, that's when you will start developing that culture on its own. Because trust me, for the last so many years, I think a lot of organizations have tried the stick approach, and it does not work. You can get away with it. You can report the number of training hours you have done in a year. But honestly, what is the result on that, right? And that's the real question. So I think driving that culture by making people feel like a part of the process versus telling them this is what you need to do is probably the most effective way of going about this.
Great. Thanks, Vinesh. Thanks, Arzu. I think this brings us towards the end of the webinar. We're already 2 minutes over time, so I'm going to thank everyone for joining. It's really great to see so many people interested in this topic. I'd like to thank Nida for making sure she was constantly following up with everything, so really appreciate that, Nida. Thank you, Binesh, Arzu, Abdul Qayyum Sheikh, and Javed Qureshi for taking out the time for being here. It's been really good, and I personally have learned a lot. So I think I can speak for the audience as well, that they probably have learned a lot and taken some pointers back for them to add in their organizations. Thank you for your time and have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thanks.
much.